All right, Coach Ronnie here with another speed analysis video. This is Julian. Let's dive right in. From day one, you're going to notice a great shin angle. He's creating a deep shin angle, very acute shin angle. The deeper that shin angle is, the more acute that is, the more efficiently he can propel himself down the turf. I'm going to point it out so you see exactly what I'm talking about here. Let's go ahead, go forward a little bit right there. And this arrow you see right there, that's the shin angle I'm talking about. The more acute that angle is, the more efficient he is at propelling himself down the turf, all right? So let's back off of that and see what else we can find. Now right here, you see the acceleration picture up there, right? Compare that picture you see to his acceleration posture right there. They're very similar, correct? And there's one thing I'm not sure because of this angle, but his right arm, you can see his right arm. Let me see if I'll point that out for you right in here. He may be crossing the midline of his body. We want to avoid that. I can't say for sure, but the take-home point for you is when you're running, there's a line running down the middle of your body. You don't want your forearms to cross that line. Like I said, it's difficult to see if he's doing it here, but that's a rule for you all right? So let's clear that out and see what else we can find here. Now, I'm gonna go back. One thing I noticed is it looks like he might be beginning to cycle a little bit early because we want the left leg, right? The left leg, as he begins to get that left leg up, we want, you know what? He is crossing. What I'm looking for is a low heel recovery. Low heel recovery. Because two things happen as we accelerate. Number one, we want to drive our legs in a piston-like fashion behind our hips, right? And if we cross our legs, see how his toes right here? Let me slow it down, let you see exactly what I'm talking about. See how his toes are pretty much stepping over his ankles right there? That's what we want from the start. That's called a low heel recovery. That's going to enable you to have that piston-like movement in your legs, attacking the grounds behind your hips, propelling you forward. Now, as we proceed down the turf, we're going to start cycling our leg. You're going to see his ankles are now stepping over his knees. That's when the cycling process begins, right? But we don't want to do that in this phase. You're stepping over you're going from stepping over your ankle right here, like I mentioned, right? Stepping over the ankle. And I would like to see another drive right there, but now he's stepping over his knee, beginning the cycling phase. So we want a couple of good, solid, let's call them heel step overs right here. 1, 2, let's get a couple more, boom, boom. Then we proceed to start the cycling process, all right? So let's go back. Now, if you notice, Julian's a baseball player, so you see the baseball start. The front foot is very important from the baseball start. See, he rotates a little bit, but he doesn't need to pick up his foot and open up his foot, which will cost him time. His foot's in a pretty solid position to push off of right there. And like I mentioned, nice heel recovery, great posture as you saw before, good arm action. So I'm pretty solid with his start. Now we're gonna head to his top velocity mechanics. All right, let's check out Julian's top velocity mechanics. He's gonna come blowing by us and flying by right here, right? Let's see if we can get his arm action first. That's pretty good arm action right there, folks. That's darn good arm action. Let's see where he strikes the ground, because this is huge when it comes to the top velocity sprint mechanics. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna pause here. One thing I want you to pick up on, let me see, point this out for you guys. Check out his foot, the position of his toe where he lands right there. Can you see that? He is slightly externally rotated. So if his body is square at 12 o'clock, his foot is landing at around 1 o'clock, the 1 o'clock position. I hope you guys can see that. I'll try to get a little more specific right there. That's more of a 1 o'clock position compared to a squared up, straight 12 o'clock. That's due to the restrictions within the foot ankle complex. And we're working on that as we speak. All right, so let's clear this stuff out and proceed. So you see the ideal, it might over here probably, but you see the ideal mid-stance posture of the gentleman here. Let's look at the differences. This gentleman creates the perfect figure 4, right? He's slightly in front of his hips, similar to Julian, but look at their 2 legs. So you're gonna see this gentleman's shin is parallel to the ground with his foot dorsiflexed, right? I like to say toes to his nose, right? That's the dorsiflexed position. His toes are pretty much perpendicular to the ground, right? That's the ideal posture we want. And he's a little taller than Julian in the torso. Tall during your top velocity mechanics is very important, all right? So he's tall throughout the torso, slightly in front of the hips, and he creates that perfect figure 4. Now let's look at the differences. When we look at Julian, he has minimum space between his legs. See, this gentleman here, ideal posture, there's no space. That's why it's the ideal example of ideal posture. Julian might have a little separation, very small, minute bit of separation right there between his legs. So separation between your legs can be a sign of lagging. We'll talk about that in a few seconds. Now, lagging is when you spend a good amount of time on the back side of your mechanics. And let me give you some clarity there. So let's go check out his front side mechanics, right? Okay, that's a good position right there for front and back. So everything here we're seeing on the front side, we're gonna call that front side mechanics, all right? Let's clear that out. Then we'll come back on the back side. What's going on back here, those are his backside mechanics. So where's the lagging coming in place? Right here. Right here, it appears that he might be spending too much time lagging in the backside when he strikes. Let's see, when he strikes here, we do not want that heel or the sole of the shoe to be pointing. Let me see if I can get it. To be pointing towards the sky, right there, boom. That's what we don't want, all right? That's like, again, that's a sign, that could be a sign of lagging. That's what we want to avoid. We're gonna pull that leg through like the gentleman in the ideal posture up top. And that could be a couple of things. That could be mobility. I think in Julian's case, it's more of a strength thing. So let's clear that out and see what we have next. Let's head back here so if we missed anything. The toe off is good. What he does a good job of is getting this foot as he pulls through quickly into that vertical position. What am I talking about? Let's see. He's coming through, boom, okay, he's toeing off. That leg is about to come through. It's coming through right here. And let me see, it's coming through. It's too far, right there, boom. He's toes off, legs comes through. He's gonna get to that vertical position right there. Now he's prepared to strike the ground slightly in front of his feet like we talked about before. Here's another angle of the lagging. You can see that separation between his legs right before he strikes right there. All right, that separation. All right, that's what we want to avoid. And I think that's another example of coming straight through. There's that lagging right there. But, you know, that's just something we need to work on. That's normal for kids his age. Mechanically, Julian is sound. Let me square y'all up. Mechanically, Julian is sound, and knowing the type of athlete he is, we're going to focus on putting muscle on him, continue to develop muscle mass. He's a baseball player, athletic, middle infielder. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Julian decreases his 60 time over time. All right. So I want to go over his force velocity numbers now. With these numbers, you can see him up top or probably over here. You can see his numbers. So at the time, he had some of the best numbers. His max velocity numbers were good. His P-max numbers were good. P-max weight per watts per kilogram numbers were pretty good. Now, we pay attention to all of these numbers, but I want you to look at the DRF and below. The DRF it's in red because that's the one number that we want to decrease. The force reduction throughout sprint, all right? The more we can minimize that number, that's saying that he's able to maintain his force production throughout the sprint, all right? We're gonna keep that number, we're constantly trying to decrease that number, all right? And let's see, at 10 meters, that's the rate of force production at 10 meters. How much force is he producing at 10 meters? We obviously want that number going through the roof, and he had some of the higher numbers there. And what percentage of his sprint is horizontal projection or horizontal force production? That is what sprinting is all about. How can you project the body horizontally? And he's a 59% guy. 59% of his sprint as horizontal force production, which is good. He's like a balance sprinter. He has a good amount of velocity. He's producing a good amount of velocity, and he's producing a good amount of horizontal force. All right. So with that said, as like I said earlier, he's a guy where we're going to continue to put muscle mass on him, continue to work on his mechanics. He's in a good place. He's a baseball player, athletic. I'm looking forward to seeing what Julian does in the future.